Let's have a look at Game of Thrones Season 7 trailer. Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholagladiatoria. So it's that time of year or whatever, again, where not really time of year, but
no.
Game of Thrones is back. So it's Matt and
Lucy,
the Eastons on Scholagladiatoria channel, and as regular viewers will know, I very often do reviews of Game of Thrones fights as we move through each season. I will be doing that with Season 7, but I thought before that, because Game of Thrones is coming in like 2 days' time, let's have a look at the trailer and see if we've got anything to say about it. So first of all, let's have a watch through of the trailer.
Enemies to the east, enemies to the west, enemies to the south, enemies to the north. Whatever stands in our way, we will defeat it.
they won't.
We're the last Lannisters, the last ones you counted. I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms.
Where's that? Shields! Spears!
If we don't put aside our enmities and band together, we will die.
He's right.
It doesn't matter whose skeleton sits on the Iron Throne.
Why? Why is she pushing the ground? Nobody knows.
Standing on horses. Kopeshes.
The Great War is here.
Dragons! So, let's have a talk about some of the details in that trailer. So the first thing I think is worth talking about in this trailer is sharpening a sword. And why is it, Lucy, that in fantasy shows, or basically all TV shows, even if they're supposed to be historical, people seem to sharpen swords which are very clearly blunt, because you can see the light reflecting off their blunt edges. You can see it in Lord of the Rings.
You wouldn't sharpen a sharp sword.
I suppose you would sharpen a blunt sword. No, that's
Well,
not.
you would. That's not true.
Why would you have a blunt sword? Well, there's no, unless it's a training sword. There's no place for a blunt sword.
Maybe it's like just been forged, and now he's like, okay, time to do the sharpening bit.
I suspect that this is Jon Snow, so this sword should be sharpened. And that goes back to my previous video. If this is Valyrian steel,
Maybe Valyrian steel is like self-sharpening.
but the whole point is Valyrian steel is not supposed to need sharpening. That's why people can shove it in the ground and not worry about it without blunting it. But anyway,
What makes you assume that's Jon Snow?
so this is an assumption that might not be Jon Snow.
I think that's not Jon Snow.
But it could be one of the other people's Valyrian. We'll see when the series starts. But if that's Valyrian steel, yet again I'm going to go, ha ha, why are you sharpening it? It's Valyrian steel. But let's assume for now it's not Valyrian steel, it's just normal steel. Castle forged steel or whatever. Why is he sharpening it with a rock? Why are you sharpening it like this? Just kind of...
Oh, because that's TV sharpening.
Yeah.
So what you'd normally do is sit with your legs apart, put it in between them and push
And just randomly
downwards.
push a rock against the side
Yeah.
of a sword.
That is how it's done.
And that will, if you watch Forged in Fire, that's how
You've
they
got to
sharpen.
take your belt off.
That's, yeah, you've got to take your belt off in Forged in Fire, but no, that's
Watch
not.
Forged in Fire.
We're being facetious or sarcastic. I have to
You
point
may
out.
sometimes not realise.
Not all of my viewers always realise when I'm being sarcastic, especially if I'm talking about home defence.
Assume about 60% of the time that we're being sarcastic.
Being sarcastic.
Yeah.
But the point is, I'm not going to witter on forever about this. That's not how you sharpen.
He is, but not in this video.
That's not how you sharpen a sword. Don't use a rock, and if it's Valyrian steel, don't waste your time.
But what is your view on the noise that he's making when he's sharpening? Because that's quite nice.
I like the sharpening sound of the kind of scraping sound. It's a bit like my opening credit, and you know, it's a bit like the swing sound, which we all know swords make when you draw them out of wooden scabbards.
Or pick them up off a desk in Spider-Man.
Yeah, when they move at all. Just
Yeah.
in the same way that all firearms, whenever you move them or point them at someone, they magically cock themselves. They make the sound of cocking even when they're already cocked. That's just a known fact. Let's move on to the next bit. So next up, shields. Lannister shields. We know these are Lannisters, obviously the lions and their spanky helmets with the weird trapdoor that opens at the side. We don't know why. But it's good that they're recognisable. I understand from a movie or TV point of view, it's good having the recognisable soldier, especially when you've got lots of people killing each other, being able to tell who is who. But shields, yes, shields. So anybody who watches my channel regularly knows. You watch my channel regularly, don't you?
I read the comments.
Lucy's watching you in the comments.
She really is.
But no, we would both agree, shields, very good
They are
idea.
underrated in Game of Thrones.
Battle of the Bastards, where the frick were the shields? Like, all are just like, give 1-1 a shield.
He was just bashing his head against the table.
Moment of silence as we remember 1-1. The last of the giants who could still be alive if he'd used a freaking shield. Anyway, shields, good stuff. Let's move on to the next bit. What do you think of Jaime's armour? What do you think?
I think that they've gone to a lot of trouble to put a lot of detail onto it, which is pretty.
I'll be honest, okay, I actually, there is some really crap armour in Game of Thrones, like really crap armour in Game of Thrones, and there's some quite good armour in Game of Thrones.
It's not shocking.
His is okay. First of all,
Yeah.
it fits okay. There's nothing which is completely idiotic about it. I like the fact that he's got a gorget. The pauldrons don't make a lot of sense because there's bits that look articulated at the side which aren't articulated. So if he lifts his arm up like this, his pauldron, or spalder really it is rather than a pauldron, is going to kind of dig into his own neck. So it's not very functional, but that is a minor quirk that you really need to know about armour to really necessarily
I think,
notice
to be
it.
fair, in general, this is for TV armour pretty
Yeah,
good.
for fantasy armour it's pretty damn good, I've got to admit. Jamie's in particular, but I'm not saying that all the armour in Game of Thrones is good, because some of it...
No, some's terrifying.
Some of it's shocking. One of the most common things to watch out for, I might do another video about this specifically at some point, but one of the things to watch out for is anyone who's wearing a breastplate, look for breastplates that are too long. And you'll notice a lot of people, if they lean
They
forward,
can't bend over.
they look like they're just about to basically break their windpipe because the breastplate goes into their neck like this. And you know, the common reason for that is because modern fabricators of costumery put the waist down where we have our belt, whereas the waist is supposed to be the natural waist just below the ribs. And if you have the breastplate coming in just under the ribs, then you can move absolutely fine. But if you put it too low, then what happens is if you try and bend in any direction, the neck of the breastplate goes and strangles you, and you look really
I
stupid.
think we need to see that dance again.
No more dancing. But anyway, Jaime's armour, not bad.
It's not
I like
dreadful.
Jaime, by the way. Lucy does not.
I don't like Jaime. He's a rapist.
He's a bit rapey. However, my understanding, haven't read the books, is
Also,
that
he pushed Bran out the window before Bran got annoying.
he did kill a child.
These
Yeah,
days, no, he didn't kill him. He just tried.
that's true. In intent, he effectively
essentially,
murdered a child.
That was very also.
So you know, it's easy to like Jaime, but I don't think you should. Anyway, let's move on to the next bit. Dragons.
Or a single dragon. So this is the bit that I think's exciting, even though it's a small interlude. And
Dragons.
doesn't involve weaponry or armour, unless you count it.
A dragon's a weapon.
Yeah.
If you're a giant, you
This
can
is- this
throw
is
dragons
Tyrion.
like javelins.
I think that they're hinting towards what a lot of us assumed is coming for a long time, that Tyrion shall ride a dragon, and this is
She
him
thinks Tyrion's a
staying
Targaryen.
back.
Spoiler.
Yeah, you're not watching this if you're worried about spoilers, surely. But
Oh yeah. If you're concerned about spoilers, don't watch this video, Karen.
yeah, we'll edit that in at the beginning. He won't edit anything. But yeah, so this is exciting. I think this is referencing the fact that he's going to be riding a dragon, or it's for people like me who are just constantly waiting for him to be riding a dragon to assume that that's the case. But then we snap to the bit with them on the boats with the one dragon going over the top. Where are the other two? Well, one of them's there.
Unsullied!
More shields!
Do they have penises? Are they just castrated? Nobody knows.
I think that we can fairly assume that if you cut off somebody's willy, it's going to cause all kinds of anatomical problems with peeing, etc., that they were not equipped to deal with at this point in time. So I think that they've just chopped off their
We
hands.
have talked a lot about this.
We may have had too many penis-related conversations about
that
Game
they've
of
got the
Thrones.
meat, but not the veg. But let's just look at this scene. So,
Regardless, shields!
Lannister, lions.
We're not talking to Lily.
Okay, so we think this is Casterly Rock, or at least some other castle belonging to the Lannisters.
It's some kind of
We go
Lannister
on.
castle.
There's a dead Lannister soldier down there. We go on to see that they're going to fight Lannister soldiers. So there's no question about that. But let's talk about weapons, because that's why you're watching this channel probably. They've got shields, they've got spears, they've got really small swords. that are more like daggers. So, a few things to say about these. First of all,
Your shield feelings.
spears. Everybody who watches my videos knows I love a really long shaft. I'm a big fan of spears.
And thrusting in general.
Thrusting and deep penetration. But spears are brilliant weapons. Without a shadow of doubt, they're the king of weapons,
They're
really.
a bugger to fit in your car though.
They work well with shields, they work well in formations, they even work well one-on-one. Yes, they are a nuisance to fit inside your car, but that's not a problem for them. But are they good for fighting in confined spaces? Probably not that good, actually, and that's one of those contexts where swords are sometimes better than spears when you're in small confined spaces and you're fighting people who are very
I
close.
guess other than the
If
entrance.
Lucy and I started having a fight now, would I want to pull out my spear? No, I'd probably prefer to pull out a dagger actually at this range, okay? Or a pommel or something else. Pommel. What? But
It's going too close.
there's something I want. So the spears, yes, that's their weapon. That's what they use. I'm not going to talk more about spears, but the shields. So I have had, I think I may have mentioned this in one of my previous videos, but I have a long-standing issue with the unsullied shields. First of all, I love the fact they have shields. I'm a big fan of shields. The more shields we can have on TV and film,
Is
the
there a
better.
design aspect of the shields that is
There is something that foxes me. It irks me. And it's the fact that they are bossed shields. A boss is a knob right in the middle of the shield board there, and you can see it's a knob sticking out in the middle. But why do they have bosses? Because they don't hold them. They're not boss-held shields. Instead, they have them on straps across the arm. So if they're strapped shields, why have a boss on them? Now, some of you might say, Matt, I've seen videos where you have a Norman kite shield, and my Norman kite shield is a strapped shield with a boss on it. And so the explanation for that, historically speaking, is that there was in the 11th century, Lucy knows all this, I've told her about this many times, haven't I?
I'm totally listened.
She totally listened. So she knows that in the 11th century they moved from boss-held shields to strapped shields during the kind of, Battle of Hastings period, middle of the 11th century. And during that period, bosses were retained probably for traditional reasons, because people thought, a shield, it has to have a boss on it.
And that is totally what the people who manufactured Game of Thrones were thinking when they made bosses on the shields, or maybe just that it looked a bit cooler.
No, I actually think, so it's so specific to have a boss on a strap-held shield. My natural conclusion is that the Game of Thrones designers have been watching my videos. They've seen my kite shield, which is strapped with a boss on it, and they went, we're going to have the unsullied with shields like Matt's. That's the natural conclusion.
Or it's to help with defense or decoration. It's like a Gatka buckler.
Now let's just talk for a second.
Lumpy fronted.
Yes, it might just be because they look better with bosses. That's probably the most likely reason. But their armour. What do you think of their armour?
What do I think of their armour? You can't really see it. It's not very close up.
It's leather. It's a bit like black
That's not
leather
leather.
biker gear.
They've got
they've got kind of like leather
metal helmets
gimp masks.
I don't really know what's on their legs.
Trousers.
They look like jeans.
Yeah, jeans.
Oh, they've got quite nice boots. I'd like boots like
They're a
that.
bit elf-like boots, but they have leather armour that, I have to be frank with you, I have thrust and cut through a lot of things, as has Lucy, and a sheet of leather doesn't offer very much protection at all. For it to offer much protection, it needs to be really thick, like rawhide and thick, and that's kind of like
But
typical
when you have to
handbag
kit
leather.
out many unsullied, maybe they just simply couldn't afford to go with the expensive
Could be.
and protective metal armour, but wanted to make them feel like they were somehow protected.
It could be like a Star Wars stormtrooper, and the armour's just there to make them look intimidating and as a uniform, and is functionally useless because an Ewok with a stick can still kill you.
Well,
So
if
maybe,
you know which points to stick your stick in.
maybe Unsullied versus Ewoks. My money's on the Ewoks every time. Anyway, let's move on to the next bit.
Pointy. I like the grasshopper bit on his head.
Yeah, so
quite good.
that's interesting. So what they've done is they've looked at a type of helmet called a Kula Kud, which is an Indo-Persian helmet.
Excellent word.
Kula Kud, yeah, brilliant. I think it's Persian.
Nice.
And this bit on the historical type of helmet that they've obviously modelled these on, is supposed to be able to slide up and down. So you can put the face bit in front of your face, protect your face off. If it's a nuisance, you want to eat, you want to talk, you can slide it up and it's out of the way.
Sorry, just look at this guy. I think his nose has got stuck on the
his
front
nose
panel.
has got stuck through the... Anyway,
Yeah.
so this is supposed to be a slidey bit, and really there's no point having this extension sticking up in the air unless it's a slidey bit. But the costume designers probably haven't understood that. They've just seen a picture of a Persian kulakud and they've copied it. But here you can see the kind of bendy leather armour that's not really going to do anything to protect them. It would protect someone from a knife slash, but it wouldn't
Do you
protect them
think
from a
that
knife
that's
stab.
meant to look like leather though? I think that that's meant to look like it is proper
Metal.
metal.
No, it's supposed to be leather, I think. But anyway, there we go.
Google
And you can see again the knobbed shields. They seem to have a little brass knob on the end of them as well, but they're very clearly holding them as strap shields.
It's
and
style
they've got
reasons.
They've got their
They're stylish
spears.
warriors.
Anyway, let's look at the next bit. So here we get to see some of the Lannister soldiers, and we can see some of them, in fact all of, oh no they don't have, they've got the weird little trapdoor open helmets again. So you remember, they've got helmets that kind of go like this. They open up at the sides like a, I don't know, like a what? Almost like saloon doors in a Wild West film, okay? Now,
I know,
why?
it's like those cars.
Yeah, like gull-wing cars, like a DeLorean. But why would... Is it like, maybe I want to eat out of the right side of my face, but keep the left side of my face protected. Why would you have a helmet that does this? I don't know. I can't think of any...
Jousting? Like, you know, they have like more protection on one side when you're jousting.
Then you just
maybe
want the whole visor
hold
up or...
face.
That's true. Actually, Lucy's got a good point. There is
I
a
like
type
how
of...
surprised he sounds.
No. So I was going to say I couldn't think of a single historical helmet which has anything like this. But you could in a way say that burgonets are a little bit like that, but they close more around the side. But Lucy's exactly right. There's a type of frog-mouthed helmet that is essentially bolted to the breastplate and you can't remove for ultimate safety. And so therefore it has got a little trapdoor that opens inside. It's not really like this, but you know, there's some comparison there. Again, the Lannisters, despite their huge wealth, have thought, our soldiers, armour. Our soldiers don't need armour. We will give them a shield,
Do you
but
think
we're not
this is
going
to
to
do
give
with
them
the
any armour.
temperature?
It could be. We could kind of explain.
You could argue it as the temperature.
And I have
it's
to
very
say,
hot.
the costumiers have given them something that is, I think, supposed to look like armour, but you can very clearly see it's not. It's just made of fabric and maybe a bit of leather. So, kind of I actually quite like their outfits. Yeah, I like their big pantaloons, their red pantaloons. They're a bit like MC Hammer. I'd quite like some of those myself. I think they suit me.
I think it look great.
And I like the fact they've got shields, as I've spoken about before.
What do you think of their swords?
Their swords look okay. They're just arming swords. We can see one falling down here. Yeah, it looks fine. So the swords are good. The shields are good. The helmets are a bit. And I would have liked to have seen them with some torso armour at least, instead of just clothes. But extra points for the big puffy pantaloon. So something that is beloved of film and TV makers, when you've got someone with a stabbing weapon and a shield, they like to jump and stab like this. And if you watch the movie Troy, Brad Pitt loves that move. It's his special move.
Never seen it.
And clearly, you've never seen Troy? Oh, well, Troy's awesome. I think it's awesome anyway. I know it's not very close to the Iliad and blah blah blah, but anyway, I enjoy it as a film. But if you've seen Troy, you'd know that it doesn't matter like what techniques someone knows or how long they've trained or you know how proficient they are. If you jump at them and stab, you're gonna hit them. Apparently, it's really effective.
Is this like meant to be jumping over a shield wall kind of
I
jumping?
think the idea is the person's jumping and stabbing around the edge of the opposing shield. So it does make some kind of sense, but it's very clear that somewhere, sometime probably in the 1990s, a fight choreographer had this idea to do this jump and stab
Take
around.
the right
with.
vertical, not just.
And then a whole series of other choreographers who've watched Troy and they went, oh, I'll use that. And then someone else has gone, oh, I'll use that. And now that they've seen it on Game of Thrones, someone else will say, oh, I'll use that. But nevertheless, this guy, if you're that guy, by the way, post in the comments underneath. It'd be great to hear about how it was filming this scene. But that stunt guy clearly is a bit more proficient than the other stunt guys here, because these guys just run around and go, ah. And this guy, he was paid extra to do a jump, I reckon. But it's quite cool. Anyway, let's just see him jump. Look, if we move Lucy out of the way. Wow, there he goes. Now, this is interesting. Let's see this little bit moving. Bam. So, oh, John, go away, Jon Snow. So it was nice that he covered himself with the shield as he stabbed with the spear. Kind of, you know, nicely done. And I actually think, from what I've seen so far of this preview, it looks like they've got the spear and shield fighting looking fairly decent, doesn't it? And I think it's challenging from a choreography point of view because there's not a huge number of things you can teach to essentially beginners to film extras that they can do with a spear and shield that's going to look good on film. What do you do with a spear? Well, you know, you can stab with it like this, or stab with it like that, or maybe stab with it like that. And there you go, that's it. And spears are highly effective. I'm not saying that they're, you know, lacking anything. But if you had to choreograph a fight with spears and shields, it's not that easy, is it?
I'd probably put in a lot of jumping.
Yeah, you probably use a lot of jumping. There you go. Because swords, you can do all sorts of different kind of moves with them, but spears are a bit more limited, at least in terms of what you could teach most extras to do in a movie. Let's move on to the next bit. Dothraki. What do you think about them, Lucy?
I'm not actually the biggest fan. I know that you're quite a big fan of them.
I'm not. I hate the Dothraki.
Really?
Yeah, they're wankers.
Yeah. The Dothraki, they're not cool. They're just... Yeah, there's no words. I have no words.
I don't. As I say, I've mentioned before. I haven't read the books, so
they lack complexity.
They may be way cooler in the books, but in the TV show, there are so many things I don't like about
That's
the
the problem. I think is that they're meant to be cool and they miss the mark.
So let's limit. There are many things I don't like about the Dothraki in the way that they'll portray
their outfits.
There are many things, but let's just limit this to the weapons and the fighting.
I quite like their hair.
Their hair and their beards are pretty cool, I've got to say, and their horses.
Not their beards.
But they are a horse culture. Let's think about history. What were most horse cultures throughout history famous for? Archery, bows. Where are their missile weapons? They spend their entire time
They don't have any.
They live in this huge expanse of space, and they're supposed to be the military dominant. They're supposed to be like.
Meant to be crazy.
They're supposed to be a cross between the Huns, the Mongols, perhaps the early Turks. They're supposed to be, you know, a plains steppe people, a horse culture, and they've got no missile weapons. It's like every horse culture I can think of practically either has bows or javelins, and they've got neither. All they've got, well, we're going to see in a minute, but they've just got swords basically. But why are they standing on their horses? I don't know. Well, maybe we'll find it. Maybe that will make some sense, or maybe they're just showing off their horsemanship. But let's have a little look at those swords, shall we? So first up, I'm going to briefly mention dual wielding. And so, you know, Game of Thrones, just like all other TV and movies of our time, love dual wielding. I'm not going to moan about dual wielding again. It looks quite cool, I suppose. In this sense, for some reason, they don't use shields. Why don't they use shields, Lucy?
Why don't they use shields? Because they didn't make any, along with the bows that they didn't make either.
They hadn't yet worked out how to make shields.
I don't think dual wielding looks cool either.
Lucy doesn't like dual wielding, even when I do it.
Especially not. Seen you do it.
Especially when I do it.
The problem is the idea of dual wielding is cool, and then like a few years back when it was kind of trendy and everyone wanted to try and do dual wielding, and that's really hard to say by the way, and it was just horrendously messy.
So
anyway, isn't that a sickle? You called it something else.
So I called it, in discussion with Lucy earlier, I referred to it as a khopesh. It's not really a khopesh. So a khopesh is an ancient Egyptian sword that is a bit like a backwards sickle. And notice that the sword's cut on this edge rather than the inside edge. I think, to be honest, they actually show cutting with both edges at various points. So they're supposed to be edged on both sides. But the closest, I think there are two weapons which come to my mind, which this is most similar to historically or ethnographically. One is the ancient Egyptian khopesh or khopesh, and the other one is the zosa, which is from, I can't remember which region of Africa, but it's known as a sickle sword by some people. And the idea of the sickle sword is when you strike with the curve pointing forwards, that the person puts their shield up to block, but the curved blade will come around the shield, so it's quite, or could even, the point of it could penetrate through the shield, so quite good in that way. The khopesh, conversely, seems to have been almost like a sword axe in a sense, in that it cuts with that. So if you imagine, it's a bit like an axe, isn't it? If you're chopping with that edge, it's like an axe.
That did weird things to the TV screen.
And if you're cutting with that edge, then it's more like a sickle. So, and if both edges are sharpened, you could use both in different ways, and you could hook with it as well. Especially hooking against shields could be quite... So do I think these weapons are rubbish? No. I actually think they're okay. However, I do think they're a bit rubbish for a horse culture. They're not particularly long, and they're likely to get stuck in a target. One of the reasons that sabres are so popular, have been so popular with so many different mounted types of soldier and sort of warriors over the years, is because naturally when you hit someone with a curved blade, if you're moving on a horse, the blade will slice and pass through and out of the target. It won't get stuck on it. Whereas, you know, if you run a sword point or a lance point into someone, you have to have a particular technique to extract the weapon as you go past.
And technique is not the Dothraki strong point. Can I point something out? Their technology is insanely crude, and they have surprisingly modern bridles.
Very, very modern bridles on the horses, yeah.
Excellent metal work
stirrups
in
as
those
well.
cases.
Their swords appear to be well made though, so somehow they are, who knows, they don't seem to make stuff themselves. Maybe they get some other, because obviously they enslave other people, so maybe they enslave people and say, make us some more of these swords, whatever they call them. But do I think this is a good cavalry sword? No, I think it's a rubbish cavalry sword, but it's not a bad sword on foot, particularly used with a shield. This could be quite a good weapon.
Looks like fun.
Yeah, I would actually quite like to play with one, and I have to say, some of the choreography they've done where the Dothraki are fighting, particularly with Khal Drogo, Jason Momoa, some of his choreography of the fighting with knives and stuff was, I thought, really, really good.
Better than general Game of Thrones fighting.
Anyway, I think we're going to wrap up this review because we're near to the end of this trailer, but just to say, because I wanted to say this for a long time, the Dothraki make no military sense whatsoever on the show. They've got no missile weapons. Why? Even just if they had javelins, just a sharpened stick, that would make more sense. And these swords are fine as swords, but they don't make very much sense as a cavalry sword. You know, where are their lances? I don't know.
I love that you were looking for them.
It's a bit, well, funnily enough, there is one spear in shot, and it's being held by a Lannister on foot. It's a Lannister with his trapdoor helmet. Anyway, so there we go. I hope that's been mildly interesting. Thank you to Lucy for agreeing to accompany me into
our own living room.
Into our own living room in front of our television. And I'm looking forward to Series 7. Are you?
Oh yes.
Oh yes. And who do you think's going to end up? Obviously, there's another season after this.
Oh, don't even know. No, I'm not telling you who
she
I
thinks
think.
Tyrion is a Targaryen, as well as Jon Snow, and that they're all going to end up riding dragons, and I think that they're
being best friends.
I think
Daenerys is going to die at the end dramatically.
I think they're going to carve up the kingdoms, and there's going to be like 3 thrones or something weird like that. But anyway, we'll see you next time, and as soon as season 7 starts, if there are any decent fights in it, which I hope there will be, there should be, I will be reviewing them. Either with or without Lucy, we'll have to see. If you make favourable comments under this video,
don't even do
then
that.
she might come back.
Bye!
And also, if you're not subscribed, what's wrong with you? Hit the subscribe button now. If you think you're subscribed, check that you are subscribed, because some people got unsubscribed because YouTube's weird. Thank you very much for watching. I have been Matt Easton.
I'm still Lucy.
She's still Lucy Easton, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers, folks.
Bye!
Thank you for watching. Please subscribe, follow us on Facebook. You can buy t-shirts through Spreadshirt, support us on Patreon, or follow us on Pinterest. Thank you.